We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
All right, hey, welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio on KKOL 1300. And wow, I'm pretty excited.
I know.
This is going to be, like we talked about in the first segment, this is going to be a good show. This is going to be an opportunity to give a lot of advice, crucial advice, on when you don't really expect something bad to happen. Mm-hmm. But, my wife was in a fender bender the other day. Oh. She called me. I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, I appreciate it, but you need to call the insurance agent. Yep. The guy was being a jerk, that was involved in the accident with her. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes people don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's a stressful situation, and you're not thinking straight to begin with. Mm-hmm. Say if a tree falls on your roof in the middle of the night in a windstorm. You're half asleep. You're not thinking straight. You're going, what do I do? Yep. And that's why we have Karl Green in here today. Yeah. So we have Karl Green. He is an estimator with Nordic Services, a restoration company. He's worked in the construction and real estate fields for a little over 30 years. During all those years, he's worked building large commercial structures such as churches and multi-story condo complexes, as well as tenant improvement build-outs. He has also held a commercial electrical license and a real estate license. So kind of knows my side of the business as well. He's had his own general contracting company which specializes in adaptive housing remodels for disabled veterans, and he is going to teach us a lot about what to do in a situation that you hopefully don't ever have to be in. But if you do, after today, you will know what to do. So, Karl, thank you very much for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, and we got thanks to him, some cool swag. Some Nordic Services Inc. hats and footballs and pins and
I might be playing catch with
I know.
The producer across the hall.
Yeah, at my office we have one of these balls that's kind of gotten chunked out a little bit here and there. Someone took some bites out of it. I think it's probably Bowden or something, my son. But this will be a good replacement since the one that I have is not doing so well. So, Karl, first off, the first segment, we always like to kind of lay the groundwork, the basics of what's going on with your company and what you guys do. So first off, why don't you explain to us what Nordic Services Incorporated does?
Nordic Services is a restoration company, so that pretty much comes into play anytime there's been some type of a disaster for a homeowner. Okay. Fire, water. Now that water can be outside damage from storms. It can also be a failed appliance, a failed plumbing fixture, broken pipe inside of walls during freezing weather, all of those types of issues. We also do full construction though as well. It's not just restoration. We also do remodels. We can do rebuilds or we can build from ground up for a brand new home.
Wow. So a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. And we do commercial as well, not just residential.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So let's give a little explanation or example of, say, a tree falls on my house in the middle of the night. Are you the first person I call? Do I call the insurance company? How does this work? What process do I go through?
First person you should be calling is your insurance company. Okay. They always will have an on-call person. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night. There's always somebody available. They're going to give you direction, and that sometimes is based upon an individual company. They all have some differences in how they respond. Some of them will tell you who to call. If it is a tree that has fallen and it has broken through the structure, obviously safety is their biggest and foremost concern. Remove all the people out of the house if you feel it's of danger. But also getting a hold of a Nordic service to come out and to assess, remove if it is a tree that has fallen into the house, and get the structure stable so that nothing else can happen. It's also vital to get it protected. To stop as much damage as possible.
So usually in a windstorm, there's rain as well.
Correct.
So you got rain pouring into the hole that the tree just made in your roof.
That is correct.
So you guys, would you come out in the middle of the night?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We're 24-hour EMS services.
So you're like the second phone call, basically.
Yes, we are.
So first I'm going to call my insurance company. Do I need to ask them, hey, do you guys work with Nordic Services, or?
You can, or you can just simply tell them we would like to use Nordic Services. They have that option. A lot of them during that time, because if they've never experienced it before, they're not going to know who.
Yeah. Well,
so they may actually look for some help.
Exactly. That's why today's show is so important,
right,
and why I want to share this with all my past and future clients.
Yes.
In case something does happen, because you just never know. And being prepared is so vital, and it's a scary time to go through something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Whether it's a fire or water damage or whatever, it's never fun.
It's typically an unknown for most homeowners.
Exactly. So so you can actually, if a tree fell in my house, I could actually tell my insurance company, hey, I know the guys over at Nordic Services. I want to use them. I'm going to call them now.
Yes.
They would go, okay, fine, go for it.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, that helps me because now I know.
Well, and a lot of our guests enlighten us as to, things we didn't know. I learned from last week's guest in regards to moving and some of the things that go on there. So this is huge for me to know. Karl, so when these events happen, I know you mentioned you're a 24-hour service, but literally, you would encourage the client at 2 a.m.
Absolutely.
to call you guys, or wait until the next morning?
No, they're typically you have to be able to assess how severe is the damage. This past weekend, we have had multiple EMS calls. One picture that a homeowner sent us was a tree laying through the middle of the house.
Wow.
That is not something you want to wait on.
No. Yeah, exactly.
You need to have that addressed immediately. Again, we want to stop any additional damage that could happen. Yeah. And so there are times when you do have to make an assessment. Where do we start this? When do we start this? But when it's catastrophic, you call.
Yeah, makes sense. So do you have any sort of relationship with insurance companies?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We work with, I don't know of an insurance company that we don't work with, truthfully. We do have relationships with a number of them. We do get phone calls directly from adjusters. We have relationships as estimators, and if we have proven ourselves in the past to them, they don't hesitate to call us and say, we have a severe problem. We received a phone call over the weekend from the explosion. Over in Greenwood, from one of the local people.
Wow.
So we have that relationship, but it's not just the adjusters.
Okay, since we're on that, I don't mean to hijack your interview.
Totally hijacking me, Dan. You see me giving you the stink.
Well, he mentioned Greenwood, and so Greenwood was in my notes so that was explosion, fire related. Right. You just talked about a tree falling on a home. So let's talk about fire. In a situation like that, obviously we have the fire department, police department. How soon do you guys normally get in there? Are you brought in right away with them?
It depends. If there's an investigation going, obviously we cannot get in there.
Yeah, makes sense.
You have to wait until that part is completed. But we a lot of times are waiting on the sidelines to be given the all clear.
Got it.
Saying, okay, things are ready, go ahead and get started on the board ups of whatever that is, whether it's broken glass, broken doors, windows, whatever it takes.
Got it. So who is the one that's actually paying for your services? Is that me? Is that part of the insurance company? Do you work with them to figure that out? How does all that play out?
Typically, on the EMS side, they've already been given authority. The homeowner has been given authority by the insurance company. We will take care of the EMS service. There are some things that they don't take care of or they have limits to. So as a homeowner, you do need to be aware of that. But typically, they've been given the authority. When we go in, we do have a homeowner sign a contract. They will in turn be reimbursed from the insurance company. We don't actually bill until we know all of the work is completed, meaning EMS is done, home is ready to go. But we don't ask for that money at the time that we walk away. Insurance companies are actually very good about getting that first payment out. And so it's typically not out of pocket for a homeowner.
Nice.
It's usually reimbursed really relatively quickly.
So it's good to have someone like you guys on kind of speed dial in case something happens.
Absolutely.
Because it's not going to be out of my pocket anyways, even though I'm paying someone that I know is going to take care of me.
Correct.
And make my life easier.
Correct.
Which is why I am so thankful that you came on today to help people out in situations like this. Because again, it's a scary time. If you have a fire, if you have a tree fall in your house, you have whatever the issue is, even a pipe bursting in your house.
Right. And a lot of times the insurance companies are trying to take care of the initial problem. They don't, or the homeowner doesn't know to ask, okay, what do I need to do next? Can I get the insurance to pay for housing while I'm out of the house, especially in fires? Most homes cannot be occupied right after a fire. Even if it was a non-combustible flame fire where it was just smoke, the acidity in smokes are so severe that you don't really want to be in your home during that time. So those are the questions, and we can't necessarily answer them for the insurance company, but we can give the homeowner the information to call their insurance companies back and say, okay, what is the process?
You're kind of there as almost like an advisor to an extent, just because you've been through it so many times before. Correct. It's not necessarily that you're going to tell them what to say step by step.
It's not new business for us.
Exactly. So you know what to help us out for, help us out with in case we needed something.
Yeah, I think typically what people do is they'll call mom or dad or brother, sister, uncle, aunt, somebody, and say, "Oh my gosh, this just happened. What do I do?" And they're looking for advice, and sometimes it's almost like the blind leading the blind, so to say. They're not getting the best advice.
Which is why I think today's show is pretty dang important.
I think everybody needs to know about this. I mean, it's in the event. This is like when we had the insurance professional on. You know what? When something bad does happen, which we don't expect it to do, at least you're prepared. At least you know. We're getting ready to do a segment on being prepared for an earthquake. If something were to happen, how can you be best prepared? Who do you call? What do you do? A situation like this, if your house is, since we're on that topic real quick, if your house is damaged in an earthquake, would we call you?
Again, you need to assess how bad is the damage. If you're concerned that the house is going to fall in, you could call us, but we're going to ask that same question because we obviously cannot send our crews out into a dangerous situation. We had that happen last fall during one of the big wind and rainstorms where the mudslide was still active. And we made the assessment. We cannot send our crews into that. And by rights, they should not have any of their family, friends, or neighbors in there.
At that point in time, you're saying, hey, it's smart to...
Material things do not matter enough.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Exactly. All right. So we got to take a quick break, but after the break, Karl's going to tell us about some little loopholes and things that we need to structure in our homeowner's insurance to properly cover ourselves and our homes in case of a major event. So stay tuned for more Seattle Real Estate Radio.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio on KKOL 1300 AM. We are back with Karl Green of Nordic Services Inc. He is talking to us about rebuilding after a major issue in your house has occurred. So we're talking fire, tree, water, all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, we're gonna go deep here in a few seconds. I wanted to ask you, and we got cut off. We needed to go to break. Service areas. Are you primarily just Seattle, or you guys move up into Snohomish and Pierce County?
We do move into Snohomish and Pierce County both. Plus, we also have a Bremerton office, so we take care of most of Kitsap.
I bet you guys had your hands full during that windstorm a few months back, huh?
We have had our hands full since last summer's windstorm.
Yeah.
Wow. It has been very interesting to get all of that repaired back for homeowners.
Wow. Man. Yeah. I wanted to hit on that because we were on that topic.
I was going to ask if you had like a busy season. Seems like
I would say typically our busy season is this time of year from October through February, March, April, whenever those big storms come. But last year and so far this year has been a little bit strange. It's just been continuous.
Global warming is not real though, so it's okay.
Well, I mean, Karl, I appreciate you taking time to come in here today and talk with us and share some insight with our viewers.
Yes.
Or viewers.
Well, they are viewers.
Listeners. One thing I'm going to talk a little bit more of kind of We're going to go a little deep here on code. We're going to talk a little about...
First segment's always the laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
Second segment, we always go way more in-depth. And that's what we're about to do.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of my questions, because we sync up before these interviews. These aren't just thrown together off the cuff. This is really important. I want to lay the foundation for this segment. In the back of your mind right now, start thinking homeowners insurance. Start thinking your policy, maybe even pull it out.
Yeah.
Hit pause if you're watching this on YouTube and maybe go pull out
to the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, with considering with what we've already talked about, are there any loopholes that people may be missing in regards to their current homeowners insurance coverage if something like this were to happen?
I would say the biggest issue is people not being aware of some add-ons to their policy.
Okay.
We have, especially code correction, I would say is one. I would say probably, I don't know what the actual percentage is. The majority of people do have it. But for the ones that do not have code correction, it can be a real issue, especially if you own an older home.
So explain to us real quick what code, I know this is big in Seattle.
Especially in Seattle, because there are a lot of older homes.
I know what code correction is, but explain to our listeners and our viewers what code correction actually is.
Anytime you have major catastrophe within your home, tree strike, fire, severe water damage where you actually have affected the structure, you are going to have the repairs permitted within, it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you are in today. You need to have it permitted, and you need to have it permitted not just for yourself, but for everybody. The insurance company is going to want to, because they want to know their house is being to be built back. The mortgage companies want to know the house is going to be built back and that they have a sellable house again. So part of that code correction is in an older home. If it's 30, even if it's 20 years old, but you go back to where it's 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and nothing has ever happened to that home. Code correction is no longer a $500 tab. We're talking 5, 10, 20,000. It can really grow.
So what that means is basically, if there was an issue, you now need to bring your house up to the current standards, code standards. That's correct. What we're talking about.
Even if you assumed the home, even if you bought the home, you sold them the home 5 years ago, and there was no problem with the inspection or the appraisal.
Well,
however,
and that's not what an inspector looks for.
No, it is not. And rightfully, it's not their responsibility for that. We do accept responsibility when we purchase those older homes. But part of that responsibility is making sure you have your protection for yourself.
Exactly.
This segment's so huge. If you're listening, this is something that can save you. And again, that's the reason why we have this show, is to upfront help our clients save money, but even as current existing clients, to help protect them and save them money
in the future,
over the life of the loan or the life of the transaction and in the future. So, okay, you mentioned something. I want to go back to something that you mentioned in the event that the home has to be rebuilt the way it should be. So let's say something happens, a severe storm, and the home has severe damage, and it's an older home. So getting that rebuilt back to the way, it could involve a complete rebuild.
Correct.
So let's say the home was built, and there'd been a few remodels, and maybe a couple of those were pre-code or back in the 60s or 70s where there wasn't a code, maybe. Permits weren't required. And so you're saying that some insurance companies, if you don't have the right protection, could say, well, we're only going to provide this, and that could only get that person to a certain point in the rebuild.
That is correct.
And then they're out of pocket.
And remember, code correction is not just the code correction itself. It could also mean the required engineering to bring that home back to where it should be.
And when I hear that, and when you hear that, you should be thinking money. Exactly. That's what that's.
Wow.
Typical engineering bill on a smaller issue is usually anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500.
Listen up.
Make sure your insurance is set up. And remember, we've had insurance providers on in the past. Might not be a bad idea to touch base with them and have them review your policy to see. And if you have one that you already know and trust, talk to them about this stuff. Make sure you're covered.
The key words are the code corrections. You know, that will definitely bring up the information that they're looking for.
We've had a couple of great real estate insurance professionals on our show. So you can certainly search on the site if you would like to connect with one of ours. Call yours. But these are some great conversations you need to be having. Let's talk about permits. So what happens if a property has some non-conforming issues and we have to assess permits?
Have to be addressed.
Okay.
And most insurance companies understand that, and they cover it.
Okay.
I don't know that I have ever had an insurance company not cover the permitting and fees required.
Well,
good.
Okay.
They understand. It's a litigious nature that we're in today.
Exactly.
And they're covering themselves.
Yep.
Okay. So considering that we just came out of a windy season, actually a windy year, it's been pretty windy around here this last year. What are the most common things that you're seeing right now in regards to like severe damage?
Well, even this past weekend with the windstorm, or Monday, I guess it was, like I said, we've had multiple tree strikes that we've had to go out on.
Okay.
We love our trees.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when the winds come through, they don't love us back.
Well, that's why I asked you about Snohomish County. Yeah. It's really, obviously, it's...
And the bigger part of that, too, is maintenance. When you are on a property that has trees, you need to make sure you're maintaining those trees.
Let's talk about that.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So what can you do for, say you have a bunch of really tall trees? How do you maintain them? What do you do to... try to prevent them from falling on your house or whatever?
Keep them healthy.
Okay.
If you notice that the trees are starting to fail, and our cottonwood trees, our alder trees, they have a short life expectancy. If you don't take care of those at the time when they're starting to fail, they are going to fall on something at some point. If you have a fir tree and you notice that the crown on that fir tree is starting to fail, it is time to remove it.
And if you're concerned that maybe you have a tree like this, look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up online and see what the signs of failure are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's being cognizant. And also, take care of the property itself, the building. If you do have trees around, you need to be a minimum of 2 times a year up on the roof, removing needles, removing leaves out of gutters. Backed up gutters cause more issues on the exteriors of home because the water backs up and can potentially get into or behind the siding of a house. Then you have dry rot. Then you have mold issues. So maintenance, I cannot express how important it is as a homeowner.
And if you don't want to do it yourself as a homeowner, anybody watching or listening, just go online and find someone. Go to Yelp, go to Groupon, whatever. Just find someone to go out there and clean your gutters. It's not expensive. And you're going to save yourself in the long run.
Well, I mean, and Carl's been in the industry forever. So if not, send us a message and we'll ping Carl and say, hey, who do you recommend? Or hey, we've got a client of ours or a listener of ours that is looking for this. So before we get off this topic, because I've got a couple of questions that are kind of going to take us in a different direction. You mentioned, getting back to kind of the insurance and loopholes, line of sight.
Yes.
And how they're looking at that. Let's talk about that real quick, because
so this is another insurance term, line of sight. So why don't you explain what that is real quick, and then...
So a line of sight issue is if you've had a failure in the house somewhere, and let's say the kitchen caught on fire, and the flooring runs continuous through the house, but you have door openings. A lot of the insurance companies today are going to a line of sight replacement, where before they would replace the flooring so that it would be a continuous covering. Today, if it's at a door opening, they will stop it there, meaning that if the old flooring is no longer available, they will not do a complete repair throughout.
Looks like we need to get insurance professional back on and hit him with some hard questions.
Exactly.
Some tough
Grill
ones.
him some more.
Yeah, because I'm learning about this. And
it even goes into cabinetry, especially if we're talking about kitchens where they're no longer worried about the upper cabinets not exactly matching the lower cabinets. And as a homeowner, how would you feel about that?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay, so we've got a couple minutes left, and I'm going to ask you different questions on a different topic now about new construction. Okay. We hear a lot that you guys have worked on new construction defects and repairs.
We have, yes. Those are, new construction defects are typically caused by contractors or subcontractors who are not aware of manufacturer installation.
Okay.
And so those are the things you want to watch out for.
I wish we had 2 hours to spend here.
I know, we could go forever.
Stuff like this is crucial to home ownership. So I want you to understand this. Nordic Services Inc. has been in business since 1982, servicing homeowners and the home insurance industry. Nordic Services is also a part of a national franchise known as 1-800-BOARD-UP, which responds to fire and natural disasters to help facilitate the securing of buildings and properties. Nordic Services also manages their own EMS department, helping with securing and or the protection of properties after fires, windstorms, flooding, etc. for homeowners or insurance adjusters handling claims. That's huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm thinking, who does that? What contracting company would have an EMS department? So this is really great. One last thing, Nordic Services is a full spectrum construction company. Obviously, we didn't even have a chance to go into that, which I budgeted some time to talk more about that. But they're a full spectrum construction company working both in the residential remodel and commercial spaces. So whether you need a ground up or a simple patch and paint, Nordic Services is a great resource to lean on. So they can be reached at 206-522-9570. We're going to share their information on SeattleRealEstateRadio.com as well.
Yep. That was great. Thank you very much, Karl.
Welcome.
You were awesome. I think everyone learned a lot. But we got to take a quick break. So stay tuned for Seattle Real Estate Radio after the break.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.